there were so many myths around breast milk. So breast milk is actually alive. Like the cells are alive. There is good bacteria fighting bad bacteria. And yet so much of the guidelines for milk storage and for pumping, all of it related back to food, like dead animal flesh. If we could just be honest for a second, breast milk has so little in common with a dead piece of chicken. I never wanted moms to feel like they had to hide the fact they were breastfeeding or pumping, but at the same time, it's not always what you want to lead with. I figured if society had failed pumping moms for hundreds of years, it was going to be up to me to do something because it didn't look like anybody else was going to do anything about it.
Welcome to the Femtech Health Podcast. Today, we're joined by Lisa Myers, the founder and CEO of Ceres Chill, a groundbreaking breast milk chiller designed to support working moms who are breastfeeding. Lisa has taken her experience as an attorney and transformed it into a mission to make life easier for parents juggling careers and motherhood. In this episode, we'll explore Lisa's journey into femtech, the real challenges faced by breastfeeding moms in the workplace, and how Ceres Chill is providing a game-changing solution. We'll also discuss sustainability in baby products, breaking barriers for working mothers, and the need for better postpartum support in the workforce. Let's dive in.
I'm here today with Lisa Meyer. She's the founder and CEO of Ceres Chill, a breast milk chiller. She's found a creative solution for all of us working women who are breastfeeding. Lisa, thank you so much for being with us today. I love having you here. I want to know how you got into this space and just tell us your story about how all that happened. You were an attorney first, right? And you're moving in this other direction. And I love it because we need you and we need help to get our working women back in the workplace.
Oh my gosh. Well, thanks. Yeah. If we want to go all the way back, I was a farm girl in Eastern Washington State. So I was something before I was a lawyer. And then, yes, I became a partner at an international law firm. I was a litigator. I was a prosecutor in Philadelphia. And then I went on to become a mom. And that's when you really start solving problems, right?
It's the truth.
Yep, yep. So right now I have a daughter who's 10 and a son who's 6, and they're amazing. Definitely keeps me solving problems, but that's how I ended up in this space. I think it's pretty much like everyone you speak to and probably so aligned with your own story. I know you have your own boys and yeah, when you're in it, when you're in the struggle and you can see how it could be easier. I mean, when I went back to work,
Mhm.
I was so proud of myself for having all my pump parts. And then I had the milk lined up on my desk, and I worked pretty much only with men. And I thought, ooh, poor execution. I was so pleased with myself. And I'm like, how am I going to keep this out of view? Because I mean, all those guys walking into your office and going, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were actively lactating. I'll come back in a few months, like, it's okay.
In a few
And
months.
then yeah, and then trying to get home, I had a commute like most people do, and I also was working a full day, and the coolers that we were stuck with before last 6 to 8 hours, and
Right.
it's like, whose day or night or life is ever in 6 to 8 hour increments? Not a real person that's trying to do it all. So, yeah, so I figured if society had failed pumping moms for hundreds of years, it was gonna be up to me to do something because it didn't look like anybody else was gonna do anything about it.
I love it. And
That's it.
it's true, isn't it? Like, all these things, you don't think about that, but we have to have a solution for working moms because otherwise they get frustrated and they leave the workspace, and we don't want them leaving the workspace when we've spent so much time and energy training them and having them part of our teams and help growing more people in the organization. We wanna make it easier and whether it's spaces for them or ways in which to have great storage. So just tell us about how all that kind of came together about this storage.
Yeah, well, for me, it was being a working and traveling mom, and the coolers just couldn't cut it. It's also a lot of plastic.
Mm.
It's a chemical freeze pack. It all ends up getting thrown away. I mean, I don't know about you, but I couldn't wait to set mine on fire. I mean, I was just like so done with it from the moment it became part of my life. Because the last thing in the world you need is another bag, and especially one that isn't going to serve you, and it's just garbage. And so, yeah, I didn't like anything about that. And the interest the interesting thing is it came from my struggle as a working and traveling mom, but honestly, being in this space, I've found all the ways it just helps all of our products just help parents in general. So, there's a lot of women that exclusively pump, so they never
Mhm.
nurse their baby, and so they're pumping in the middle of the night. They're taking their children out into the world, wild, I know. And then they're living their own best life. They're going to a concert. They're going.
Mhm.
I have to say, I think the chiller's been on more bachelorette parties than anything else. Everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, I need this as soon as possible. I have a bachelorette party in Nashville on Wednesday, and this is clearly what I need." So, yeah, it's really for any parent, and then it was funny, the very first chiller I saw in the wild, was at an aquarium, and it was, these 2 guys, the same-sex couple, and they had their surrogate's milk in it for their baby, and so it's really while it came from my struggle as a working mom, I
Mhm.
love to hear and see all the ways that it's helping, um,
Mhm.
women and parents live
Mhm.
their most incredible life while achieving their parenting goals.
Absolutely. Tell us how you came up with this name. I love this story.
I know. I was so glad we got to speak before we jumped on and into this conversation. But so when I first had the idea, I knew that moms deserved a lot better than what the world was offering, and I also very much felt how all the ways in which we have to show up, or get to show up, or challenge ourselves to show up for our families, each other, for ourselves, and then at work when we try to go back and be exactly who we were before, and we end up being more in so many ways. But um,
Absolutely.
I didn't want some. I'm trying to think of the right way to describe it, like infantile baby talk name, like
Mhm.
Tubby Tubby Baby, or like I don't wanna say a real company's name because I don't want to offend them because there's nothing wrong with their name, but
Yeah.
I wanted something that was worthy of all the women I had in
Mhm.
mind,
Mhm.
and I wanted a mark that also represented that, and when as a kid, I was obsessed with Greek and Roman mythology. I
Mm.
loved all of the stories about the gods and goddesses, and, that's where you get a real education in, like, society, and also, like, I
Mm.
have to say it, I mean, I feel like this is the right podcast for it, but a real sex education too. It's like, "Oh my gosh, Zeus has raped someone again." Like, what is happening here? So, but I loved the story of Demeter and Persephone. Demeter does not roll off the tongue quite the way I was looking for. So the Roman version of that Greek goddess is Ceres,
Mm.
and Ceres is the goddess of the harvest and maternal relations and
Mhm.
relationships and all of that bounty. And I thought, that's a great kind of single, sound that I really related to, that was powerful and I liked. And then the story and everything about her as a goddess really spoke to me. But then I was like, so much of the imagery, Sherry, was Ceres sitting on a throne with the farmers laying the bounty of the harvest at her feet, and she had a babe at her breast and a sheaf of wheat in her arm, and these like voluminous robes. And I'm like, that's not accurate. Nobody's laying anything at my feet, that's for sure. I am getting out there and I am bringing home what needs to be brought. And
Mhm.
so, I combined the imagery of and the name of Ceres with the imagery and, perspective of Diana, the huntress, and,
Mhm.
so yeah, so the mark is a beautiful, um getting after it Archer, and the name is Ceres Chill.
I
Chill
love it.
because be cool, right?
Exactly. Well, and I think it just brings this easier thing for people to have around because it looks like anything else that we would be carrying our water or our drinks or something in, right? And I think it makes it easier for us to feel like, hey, we're not so separated out, but we have something special for us.
Yeah, yeah, no, so true. I definitely needed something that was under the radar, and I never wanted moms to feel like they had to hide the fact they were breastfeeding or pumping, but at the same time, it's not always what you wanna lead with. Sometimes you're talking about something else. If you wanna share that with people, great, but
Right.
if you are in the middle of a deposition or a conference call or a conversation with your boss about, his kid being sick, you don't necessarily want to like have your milk like front and center. So it's nice in that way. And then you said, Sherry, you can, it looks like something you could put all these other things in. Not only does it look like that, it is the whole thing behind all of the products that we have to offer to parents. All the Series Chill products are multi-use. So,
Mhm,
they're supposed to go on with you forever.
mhm,
The inner chamber becomes a sippy cup when your kid graduates, and is maybe doing tiny tots soccer. They can use it as a sippy cup, and then
mhm,
you can have it as we have a straw top attachment with a tea infuser.
um,
Also, I think it's really important, Sherry, you as a mother of 3 boys would know should know you can chill an entire bottle of wine in less than 20 minutes without diluting it. I mean, a fridge can't do that. Can't. Can't.
This is our new to go bottle,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love it. I love
Mhm.
it. I love the sustainability of this product. I think that's what's kind of really amazing to me because I think that was the frustration. Like, even, all these plastic bags we were putting things in and all these, I don't know, it was frustrating the whole pumping process sometimes just because I don't know, all these things were so cumbersome. I mean, my oldest is 30 years old, so you can imagine what we had back then. It was not very sleek and it was not very
It was
easy to manage. And after a while, you would just give up. I would be like, hey, I'm
yeah.
just going to run home and nurse and then come
Yeah.
back to work, because it was just like, oh, it was just such an ordeal all the time that you got tired with it. And it's just funny now, I watch some of my gals, they'll be like, "Ah, yeah, come in and talk to me." And they're pumping while I'm talking to them. And I think when I first saw your product, I was like, "Oh my gosh, all my people need this." I have like four gals right now who are out of maternity leave who, are going to come back to work as nursing moms. And we arrange our schedule for our nursing moms so that they can pump. And I saw your product. I was like, okay, this is perfect. And this is why we need to get the word out about it because I think the sustainability of the product as a long-term solution for so many things is nice. We're not dealing with all this stuff of, like you said before, plastics and things we're just throwing away.
Yeah, yeah, and they were actually called single-use bags, and if you used them again, you were a bad mother and you were trying to kill your baby, and it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, maybe I was just trying to not destroy the environment, but thank you for that added guilt, that's what I needed today." But yeah, and I mean, and even for moms who are just in the thick of it, who just had a baby, so many of them have them on their nightstand, for middle of the night pumps or, like, passive collection, and it's so funny, Sherry, you say, that back when you were breastfeeding your kids and, it was so different 30 years ago, that's the insane thing is nothing changed until like the last 5 to 8 years,
Mhm.
things really started to advance. But up until then, it was like what you were using in 2010 was the same as what a mom was using in 1970. Like,
Mhm.
no difference, no
Mhm.
difference in the technology, no difference in the appearance,
Mhm.
none of it. And I mean, particularly like in your space and with this podcast, I think you would agree that femtech is finally taking
Yeah.
off. It's
Mhm.
women are in a position to like raise their hand and be like, I'm sorry, what are we still doing with this? Like,
Mhm.
I have an idea, I can do better. And then getting,
Mhm.
unfortunately, it's still men hold a lot of the purse strings, then finding the funding to make it happen. But yeah, it's a struggle, but it's the tides are changing. Things are finally shifting and going in the right direction. And not that I'm saying the world has to cater to women. I'm just saying stop tying really brilliant people's hands behind their back and tripping
Mhm,
them and expecting them, to get
mhm.
out there and continue to show up and do better. This will be the last thing I say because I really want to like keep the conversation going and get your perspective. But I love Ruth Bader Ginsburg so much. And one of her famous arguments in front of the Supreme Court before she was a justice was about oh, it was I mean, we don't have to go into the details of the case, but the the thrust of her argument was her saying, "I don't expect you to give me and my fellow women a leg up. I merely ask that you take your foot off of my neck." Like, that's
Mhm,
it. That's it.
mhm. I 100% agree. I think so much of the conversation maybe, in the changing space. Like, in other words, what we're trying to do is like we identify all these problems, right? But we kind of feel hamstringed all the time to actually, innovate for the solution. And I think that's where we're at now is like we women are like, hey, we've had all these things and we're just asking to have the space, the time, the money, get in front of the right people, right? To be able
Yep.
to take our products, take our ideas and elevate them for to the next level so that people have access, right? To and knowledge and understanding of like, hey, these are ways to make a woman's life better. So
Yeah.
100% I agree with what you just said, take your foot off my neck, right? Because we all, I mean, and this is, part of this podcast is really to get women who are out there who are thinking, oh, I've thought about this idea for a million times, but I just don't know exactly what to do next. I don't know exactly who to talk to. I don't know, and start connecting the dots for people because, everybody's been gifted, I think, in so many different ways. And just like you coming up with such a practical solution for a problem all of us have, right? Like when we're out with our breastfeeding, moms, I think it's making families better, right? It's not
Yeah.
just look when
Oh,
we
it's
look at
making society better for sure because the health
heck yeah.
consequences are real. And then, as you said, it's a shame if moms opt out of the workforce, but it's a shame
Yeah.
on either side, whether they opt out of the workforce or they choose not to breastfeed their child because they can't make the two work. For me, I still feel like I failed my daughter. I ended up feeding her formula from the jump, and I ended my breastfeeding journey with her much earlier than I planned and much earlier than the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends because I was back at work and I was traveling for work, and
Mhm,
I couldn't see any way I could figure
mhm,
those out. I threw thousands of ounces of milk away in airports
mhm.
because you've got
Yeah.
these great places to pump and then you have no
Mhm.
safe way to get it back. What are you going to do? It's like you got to keep your supply up and you can't be sitting in a meeting just leaking breast milk all over. So you pump and then you just pour it out. Just pour it
Yeah.
out, move
y-
on, keep going.
Yeah. I know. And that just killed me when that had to happen. I was just like, are you kidding me? But I think, for people to understand who have breastfed, right? Like all of a sudden your milk comes in, hey, you got to do something. And it doesn't matter what you're in the middle of, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
we're in trouble when that cycle happens, so it's just like my working moms who come back who are pumping, et cetera. We're trying to be like, okay, what's your schedule, how are you pump, so that we can get them rhythmically scheduled so that they
Yeah.
all of a sudden aren't in the middle of treating a patient or doing something and they got to pop out, right? And
Yeah.
so I think it's making space for women too during this time because that's the last thing we wanna do is lose women, do you know what I mean, who we've
Yeah.
trained up and who are excellent at their jobs, but, like, we're not making this space for them, so, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I get it, and I think it makes families' lives way better, so I think when we look at what we're doing in women's health right now is that it's including everyone, you know what I mean? It's like all these things that we do to make things better for women then affects the family, and as you said, affects the community, and it affects our country and the world, and I think that's the way we have to look at it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Preach.
Yeah.
Especially right now. I mean, with
Yeah.
everything we're facing, it's just so challenging the way people, see making very basic accommodations to to continue to benefit from a really strong workforce. It's not
Mhm,
about an
mhm,
accommodation
mhm,
to, make space for some dead weight on your team,
mhm,
it just feels like that's
mhm,
so often how it's perceived, and it's
mhm,
like, "No, you have it backwards." There's a real opportunity to make sure that you
mhm,
are in front of all of your competition and you're attracting and retaining the very best talent and
mhm.
yeah, have that diversity. But I mean, we could be here for weeks talking about that.
We absolutely could. So, share a little bit about how the chiller works and like how it is able to keep things cold for so long.
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked. I could show it to you, but then I always end up clanging steel. So we won't do that to the amazing team you have that puts a beautiful sounding podcast together. It could be like, what is that called when you like have all the sounds? It's so popular in TikTok, everybody listens to the sounds, but we won't do that. So it's two chambers. Kind of to your point earlier, Sherry, it's been called, the Yeti or Hydro Flask of breast
Mhm,
milk or formula storage. You can use it for either.
mhm,
And it's two chambers. So I have a utility patent on it, international utility patent. And I am happy to talk with anyone about that process. The United States Patent and Trademark Office has one of the most beautiful, accessible, brilliant websites to help
mhm,
a layperson get through the process. I just think it's the best. But so yeah, I have a patent on the design. It's two chambers. And so you put ice in one and you can put
mhm,
your milk or formula in the other. And it's two different capacities. So 12 ounces in the inner chamber and 28 ounces in the outer chamber. You can pump directly into it. So
mhm.
all of the parts reconfigure so that you can connect it directly to your breast pump.
Wow.
And it works with any standard baby bottle nipple. So what's
Oh,
great is any caregiver can feed the baby on the go. If you're an exclusive pumping mom, if it's dad that's out with the baby or grandma or whoever, you can take that chiller and have formula and breast milk at a safe temperature, and then feed the baby on the go as you normally would. But it's all in one attached compact bottle.
that's great. I love it. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing that about the utility patent too, because I think people get a little intimidated when they, start to think about sort of changing some of these things or coming up with things. It always sort of stops a lot of people in their tracks, because they think, well, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a, but I think this is the way we change the world, right? Is that
yeah.
we have these ideas and we figure out, oh, who do we network with or who do we talk with to help come up with, the next step of what we need to do. So, Lisa, just about that component, was that how long a process did that sort of take you to do?
So, and what's really great, if it's okay with you and your team, Sherry, we can link in the notes. Like, there's a couple
Yeah.
blogs about the whole process that I went through. It,
Oh,
I,
good. Yeah.
I invite everyone to check it out because it has the most adorable drawings you'll ever see. I can't draw a straight line to save my life. Thank goodness the patenting company does not depend on that. So yeah, I filed my provisional patent by myself. Definitely got help from the pros for the final one, but a provisional
Mhm,
patent will protect
mhm,
an idea for a year.
mhm,
And, I'm definitely not telling anyone not to get legal advice, but I am saying that if you're getting stopped because, you can't afford an attorney for thousands upon thousands of dollars, I I am proof that you can do it on your own. Admittedly, I am a lawyer,
mhm.
but I'm not a useful lawyer, Sherry. That's what I always tell people. I'm like, I'm not a commercial lawyer. I'm not a business lawyer. I'm not an intellectual property lawyer. I can put drunk drivers away like nobody's business in the Northeast District of Philadelphia. But like beyond that, I'm challenged. So, yeah, so that process people asked me when I first had the idea, and I can almost say the very email I was writing at the time because it was my first day back after having my son. as I said, I was so pleased with myself and I pumped and I'm like, "Oh man, poorly executed. I have to find a way to something to do with these bottles of milk." So I stuffed them in my suit pockets and walked down the hall to the communal fridge and then stood there looking at the fridge with my bottles lined up beside, like Joe's lunch and like, the conference room leftover sandwiches and that. I'm like, okay, so not this. So then I went to office services. I got a paper bag. I threw it in the paper bag. Then I put it in the fridge. I'm like, okay, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. Right. And so, yeah, that was October of 2018. I filed my provisional patent by myself the day before Thanksgiving of 2018. I got help from a friend who I knew from my commute. I live on Bainbridge Island, so just across from Seattle. I got help from my friend Abigail to set up a website. And I found someone that could like give me advice on crowdfunding, which
Mhm.
is not really great for femtech. It's not really great for women because our products are needed usually on a schedule. It's not like I'm just gonna say, it's mostly a dude space, a bro
Mhm.
space, I have to
Mhm.
say. Crowdfunding is for people who are developing like a video game or an app or they have a cool sleeping bag, and if it doesn't get delivered on time, it's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
whatever, I'll use it next season," right? If
Mhm.
you have a breastfeeding item or a child's toy,
Mhm.
that changes week to week, month to
Mhm.
month, and not year to year.
Mhm.
That is like something that is very relevant for me today as a parent becomes super irrelevant in, 4 to 6 weeks. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's hard. But yes, then I had a Indiegogo campaign July of 2019. I had first articles for approval, which is what comes back from the factory to say, "Okay, so do you wanna make a few thousand of these?" They were a complete and total disaster. I often describe them as the most beautiful pieces of garbage I've ever held in my hands, ever in my
Mhm.
life. And then we fixed those problems. I went into production, and I had my website fully launched and selling product January of 2020, just in time for the pandemic.
I was just gonna say, perfect.
Yes, yes, it's like I planned it.
This is the way it
Mhm.
happens, right?
Yep.
So, Lisa, this brings me to this whole piece of like, okay, how do you keep your resilience up for the work that you do? Like, because when you're a founder and you're the CEO, like, you don't really ever leave your office. Like, you're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? So, like, what do you do to help? Like, what keeps you motivated and keeps you passionate?
So I worked full time as a partner at the law firm for the first 3 years I had the company. My daughter ended up randomly experiencing seizures in the middle of the night right when I went back to work with my son, who was 3 months old. My husband got deployed to Iraq, and that was right at the beginning of the pandemic. I gave myself shingles. That was fun. It so that is all to say it's not for the faint of heart. It's doable. I am not an engineer. I have no business training. I have no business being in business, but, somehow I show up every day and we pull it off. I have slowly but surely collected the most incredible people in the entire world, um, who are part of my team. Um, I started in January of 2020, so this will be we're going into our 5th year, and, all the big companies are now looking to crush me, but we continue to be a wild success, and I would say the only thing that sees me through is I know that nobody else could do this job better than me today.
Mhm.
That might be
Mhm.
different tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um, and then all of the moms that we hear from, all the parents who say, there's no way I could have done this if it weren't for you. The conferences that I go
Mhm.
to, long haul truck drivers and pediatric
Mhm.
cardiologists and
Mhm.
ER nurses,
Mhm.
postal workers, it's women and exclusively pumping moms who like said, I never thought I'd be able to make it this far in my journey, but it's been a huge help to have not only your products, but the community that you've built because we really do have the best women working our customer service and we have a really cool Facebook group and our Instagram is just a huge inspiration. So, yeah, I have to say not to be cheesy, but it's definitely my customers for sure.
No, I think that's exactly right, right? You get up because one person at a time, right? You make a difference and those people then go on to tell so many other people and that's really the way we want it to happen, right? Like we
Yep.
want that conversation and that talking and women don't want to be alone. They need to be with other women to like help them like in society to help them get on their journey and go where they need to go. And I think it's such a delicate time for women. I think breastfeeding, especially a first time mom who really has the desire to breastfeed and maybe says, hey, I wanted to, breastfeed for a year or two. But when they get some of these roadblocks, right, that keep happening, like
Yeah.
popping up, it's so easy. I mean, just like you were saying, hey, where am I going with my milk in the fridge?
Yeah.
And now I have to remember to take it home. And we know in that first 2 years postpartum after baby, our brain is so connected to our children. That baby, we like know every little thing, but we forget things,
Yeah.
other things that maybe don't seem to be connected, in the same way. And so, just having more of an ease of use, I think that's the difference for, moms to be able to have something that's going to make their life easier. And I love one of the things that you said. It was basically about like it lightens the logistical load. And
Yes. Yeah.
I I I think about this with women, I mean, all the time. I have 3 sons, so it's funny, sometimes they'll ask me certain things and I'm like, "Well, you have no idea as the woman or the mother or the all the things that we have to go through the process before we even leave the house." And so
Yeah.
they're always teasing me about how many bags I have and how many this I'm carrying and but I think, when I read that, I was thinking it's really the truth. Like if it's just one less thing
Yes.
that we have to work through or process or do, you know what I mean? It's all regulated and ready to go in an easier way. And I think that's what we're after for women, like trying to come up with solutions that actually do lighten the logistical load. So I,
Yeah.
I love the way you said it. And it just makes me think, okay, this is what we need to do, because we're trying to get women to breastfeed longer if they can. Some of my moms are like, okay, I'm coming back to work at 3 or 4 months and I just have to be done. It's just too much. And they're sad about it. So
Yeah.
do you find with your product that people are able to breastfeed longer?
Um, it feels obnoxious to say because I don't wanna take any credit for what all of these women are doing, and I think they give me and the company too much credit, but we hear all the time that moms thought they'd get to, 3 months and then it was 6 months and they're like, "I'm over a year now and it's all because I have my chiller and I, or like we have nipple shields and we have milk stash, like I'm not a one trick pony anymore." And so it's nice to hear their stories. Um but yeah, I we also have I'm committed to, like, breaking down as many barriers as possible, and so, there were so many myths around breast milk. So breast milk is actually alive. Like the cells are alive. There is good bacteria fighting bad bacteria. And yet, so much of the guidelines for milk storage and for pumping, all of it, related back to food, like dead animal flesh. I mean, if we could just be honest for a second, breast milk has so little in common with a dead piece of chicken. I mean, taking that out of the freezer, thawing it in warm water, leaving it sit on the counter, putting it in the fridge, putting it back in the freezer, then thawing it again. Yeah, no, I don't recommend that we feed that to our loved ones. But breast milk has live cells, and as long as you're not killing them in the freezer, setting them out, changing the temperature, by a few degrees here or there. In the beginning, there was a ton of resistance, especially on social media to the chiller because everyone's like, "How dare you recommend people kill their babies? Like, how dare you?" These big companies telling people things are safe when we all know it's so dangerous to combine warm milk with cold milk.
Mhm.
that's newly expressed over the course of a day. And I will tell you, Sherry, that I had friends that were throwing away a couple ounces here or there because they're like, just the overwhelm of washing all those bottles. And they weren't able to pump enough that they could afford to throw away those ounces, but at the same time, just having to, like, go through all of the logistics of, like,
Mhm.
getting to the end of the day and pumping, it was insane. And so I'm really proud that we're constantly shutting down some of that misinformation and really changing the conversation so moms can be informed. I'm not saying moms should all be out there putting pressure on themselves to
Mhm.
exclusively breastfeed, but
Right.
to not let to have all the information and have all the tools to get them through and then decide whether or not they wanna do it. Kind of like you're talking about people coming back to work
Mhm.
and saying, "I just can't." It's like, "Well, how about we have a conversation and give it a try?" And if it
Mhm.
doesn't work and it's, like, too much, okay, but
Mhm.
maybe it won't be as bad as it has been for every other woman for the last 50 years.
Mhm. No, I totally agree, and I love what you're talking about with the milk is not like, other food products, because I think people have a misunderstanding about milk, the milk supply, how it all works, et cetera. So I think changing that narrative is super important too. And so, I think people can get stuck a little bit in that, and
Yep,
I love it that you're sort of pushing back and saying, "No, that's not the food is different than milk." And I think that's a key, because I think milk is such I mean, if a woman can do it, it's just so much better for them long term. And there's some women who can't, or issues come up, or different things happen. But I mean, if they can, it's such a good source, right? And we should
right.
be supporting them in that, if we can.
Yeah, yeah, the thing that makes me most outraged and really keeps me going, back to your previous question, is how breastfeeding is so much a class and race issue right now, that
Mhm.
only white women of privilege really have a shot at getting to those goals that the American Academy of Pediatrics has set for us. If you are a shift worker, if you don't have the benefit of insurance, if you don't have, access to, or feel that you can advocate for yourself for very, very simple, basic accommodations, I mean, you almost have no hope in heck of being successful. And so many women have to return to work within days of giving birth or a C-section, weeks. I mean, and then you've got all of that added stress and burden. And what really is where we're really failing society and some of the most vulnerable members of our communities is that breastfeeding helps prevent breast cancer, helps prevent diabetes, helps prevent all kinds of really significant ailments in moms. And
Mhm.
then, in addition, it can help prevent SIDS, it can help prevent diabetes, it can help prevent, I mean, obesity, all different things in infants. And so,
Mhm.
when you've set up a system where only privileged white women, I'm just going to keep saying it, are the ones that can be successful, then that's a huge injustice. And
Mhm.
it's just wrong on so many levels. So it's really great. We are able to work with WIC programs in a lot of
Mhm.
states. I'm really proud of that, so that
That's
some
wonderful.
moms, yeah, that wouldn't have access to our products. And then we partner with a really cool company, Sherry, and I don't want to get off track, but it's called Goodbye Gear.
Okay.
BUY. We can provide that in the notes too, because I just love their mission. It's the women that are running that company. There's probably some guys. I just know the two coolest women that are at the top. But they inspect and then sell used or open box baby products.
Uh-huh.
So they fully inspect it, they fully sanitize everything, they make sure it's safe, they're completely transparent about their process and about the condition that the item came in. If it can't be fully sterilized or if it's damaged, it gets thrown out. But we send all of our returns. I'm proud to say I have 1% returns, but all of those go directly to Goodbye Gear. And then moms can buy those chillers for sometimes less than half the price. So you're keeping
Right.
a product out of the landfill. You're providing for a mom that maybe was stopped by the price. And, you're continuing this like sustainability that so many parents want for their kids. I mean, we're not trying to set the world on fire and watch it burn?
I think you brought up something important, so I'm going to jump to it just for a
Yeah.
second. I just look at our country right now and I say, okay, what are we doing postpartum for women and babies? I mean, luckily in the state of Washington, they have FMLA and they get, 3 to 4 months worth of time frame to actually be home, connect and bond, etc. But we're not doing well all over our country. I mean, we need to do better for, and it wouldn't matter who the mom was, right? Like
Yeah.
we need to do better to provide time frames for women to be out of their workforce and then have the opportunity to come back into their workforce. And I know it's challenging. I'm a business owner. I have 4 moms out. I think I told you right now on
Yeah.
maternity leave. And I mean, it's definitely a struggle, for our organization to have 4 leading moms who are out right now. But we also know, in fact, I was joking with all of them saying, like, what was in the water? You
Yeah.
guys had all your babies, like, literally boom, boom, boom.
Was it just mess with Sherry Day? Like, seriously.
Yeah. But I mean, I share that though, because I do know for organizations and businesses, it is a challenge. But I think we have to begin to honor the process in our country of actually women being out of the workforce for periods of time where they actually have what they need in order
Mhm.
to jumpstart this baby and jumpstart their life as a new parent, etc. And I do love that there's FMLA like that in Washington state because I do believe that that helps our women sort of get set up, right? So by the time they do come back, maybe at 4 months, they have a rhythm going, and now their husband can take off time because he gets
Yeah.
FMLA as well. And I think those things are powerful. And that I think is the next conversation that starts to need to happen is like, what are we going to do state by state in our country to say, okay, what are we doing for postpartum like care for women, whether it's in the physical realm, but also for the family system in order to be successful? And you brought it up, like, it's almost set up poorly, right? If only privileged white women get to be able to have the opportunity to breastfeed. Like what?
Yeah.
That's not right. And I think we have to start to figure out how state by state are we going to do this and like, honor the fact that we believe in the family. I mean, we say we do as a country, but do we?
Right.
If we're, I mean, you talk to people in, the Scandinavian countries and some of them get a year to two off to be able to stay home and start the process, right, of a family system and get it set up right so that we
Yeah.
can actually be successful. So I think this whole breastfeeding component is part of that bigger, because think of it, all of a sudden a woman is stressed out. She has to go back to work. And what happens sometimes to her milk supply?
Oh,
A lot of a lot of women will tell me that, oh, I was doing so great. And then I tried to juggle all this stuff to get back to work at 6 weeks. And like it imploded. So I know it's difficult for business, but I think at the same time, we have to figure out, well, what do we want? Do we want women to not be in the workforce or do we want them to be in the workforce? Or how are we gonna put this all together? So these conversations I think are powerful in our states to be able to figure out how to do all this better. And breastfeeding happens to be a component of that.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And for me, it's that I say only white women of privilege. I think that there's a lot of guys who, these modern men, hopefully you and I are raising some of them, Sherry, that they really want to be more involved and they want to be showing up for their children and for their partners. And the only way we're going to really, I think, find equity and equilibrium and have a system that really works is when men are encouraged, if not certainly encouraged and supported, if not forced to take the leave that women are taking, so that it's not just seen as like, uh oh, you've got 10 women on your team of childbearing age, you're screwed. Like, it should be you have people who may be interested in having a family. How are we all going to work together so that
Mhm.
we support the company's bottom line and we also make sure that we we all can be healthy members of society with healthy babies and achieve our parenting goals as we show up in the workforce.
Absolutely. And I think this team collaboration, I just shared this little story in one of my offices where one of my moms was going to be out. Literally, the other girls knew, hey, she's going to be out for 3 or 4 months. Hey, we're going to do a few different things to like work extra or do different things in order to preserve her space so that when she comes back, her
Yeah.
space is ready for her, with a load of patients, et cetera. So they like, I didn't even ask him to do it. They just
Mhm.
literally said, "Sherry, like, we know she's gonna be out, and we love her, and we
Yeah.
love the fact that she's having her first baby, and we're gonna support and stand behind her." And that's what this
Yeah.
is about.
But I hope you give yourself a lot of credit that that's the team you put together and that's the space you created because maybe we can link it in the notes too. I have a whole blog about pumping rights and about how and even a sample email to send to your employer. But so often the conversation, certainly where I worked before, was like, oh, looks like she's on the mommy track. There was the partner
Mhm,
track where you were ambitious and you were interested in advancing at the firm. And then there was the mommy track where you were just like, waiting to get knocked up again. And then you were going to go out on maternity leave, collect your paycheck, and then never come back. And it was like, why would we bother accommodating her or setting her up for success when she comes back when like she's one of those, right?
mm,
And like you were already written off before you even went out on maternity leave. Like,
mhm,
you just mentioned you were pregnant or you started, heaven forbid you started to show. Um and so I think when the priorities are set at the top. It doesn't even have to be that you do a lot, but that there is value in this person, that we
mhm,
fully anticipate they're going to come back and they're going to be that team member that we all missed
mhm,
and start showing up again. And okay, so let's all dig in. Let's see what's
mhm.
possible. That changes the world.
Yeah, I agree. Lisa, will you just share a little bit about some of your other products too? Because I
Oh,
don't know
sure.
if everybody knows about them. So will you just share a little bit with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really proud of all of them. So we have the breast milk chiller, and then I also created the Demi Goddess, which is the slightly smaller size. Both of them have coffee lids and straw tops and tea infusers. So I love that, thinking forward and the sustainability aspect. We can now customize them. I love
Mm,
that. So like
that's so
we
great.
can partner with businesses so that when someone comes back from leave, they're not given a branded onesie. I know I got a onesie with the firm's logo on it. I'm like, thanks. Like, I mean, it's nice, it's thoughtful. I don't mean to be a brat. It's like, "You got a gift, girl. Shut up." But it was just kind of like, like it just felt like such an afterthought. And to see these companies, my old law firm actually being one of them, giving chillers customized, with the firm logo, it just means so much to those parents to hear about like, oh my gosh, like to feel seen. Like not
Mhm,
that they're pressured to breastfeed, use it for formula, use it for wine, whatever, but that they are going out to concerts and they're also going to work and they're going on work trips. So the
mhm,
customization, not only can moms be inspired by what they put on it, they put their children's name or biblical verse or a quote that they love, and then an image is cool. So I love that. I love that so much. But the other products I have patents on, one is a nipple shield. So do you
mhm.
know anything about nipple shield, Sherry?
It's funny. It's just sort of come into my radar because we didn't really have those, just saying 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I, I mean, ours were little cotton pads, things that you kind of laid in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Well,
was about it.
if you have an inverted nipple or there's a million different reasons you might use them. If your letdown is overwhelming to your baby or if your baby has like a cleft palate or a
Mhm,
tongue tie, um, you sometimes need or if you just have a wound on your breast, which happens, you need a little slip of silicone that you
mhm,
can put so that it's like a barrier or in a way to like have a nipple that can be put into your baby's mouth and help with them to remove milk, when they're nursing. So, the thing about nipple shields is they're clear wisps of silicone. And the
Mhm.
second you set them down, Sherry, they are gone, gone, gone. You just set it right there. Like, where did it go? And then I would wash the sheets, and they're expensive. They charge way too much for them. They're expensive, and I would wash the sheets and find like $1,000 worth of nipple shields in the sheets, right? Because when you're dependent on them, I used to like ask my husband to get more all the time because when you need them, your child will not nurse without them. Like there
Mhm.
is no, I'm like, Tegan will die of starvation and I will die of mastitis all within sight of each other. Like that's what's going to happen. So, yeah, we just kept buying them and losing them. So, mine, I'm so proud. First of all, they're beautiful. Second of all, they are thermochromic. So, they turn
Mhm.
colors. So, they're neutral
Uh-huh.
body temperature, and they're brightly colored at room temperature, and they look like flowers.
Oh, I
Um,
love it.
and each size is a different color, so you can readily identify the size, and also, you gotta leave it to a mom, right? Nobody knows their nipple size. Nobody. I
Mhm.
mean, I run this business. I don't know my nipple size. Plus, your nipple size can change over the course of your
Mhm.
breastfeeding journey.
Mhm.
Isn't that fun?
Mhm.
And one side can be one size, and the
Mhm.
other side can be another size. I mean,
Mhm.
that's just
The way it
anatomy.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, nobody else does this, and I keep worrying, like, oh no, if I say this idea, like one of the big companies might steal it. They try to steal stuff from me all the time, but the world would be better if everyone did this. So I'm fine if they decide to steal it. I sell what's called a magic sizing kit, and it
Mm.
has all of the sizes we sell
Uh,
in one kit. And then moms can buy that, try
mhm.
it, see if they fall in love with one, or maybe
Mhm.
again, one size fits on one side and one size on the other, or they can like use
Mhm.
different ones at different points in their journey. Or if they fall in love with one size, they can buy that size for 50% off. And then they've
Mhm.
got a whole set, whatever. So yeah, I love that product if you couldn't tell. And then milk stash, so you can freeze breast milk into perfect half-ounce cubes. So then
Oh,
you're only thawing exactly what you need, and you're not using all of that single-use plastic. And also very proud of this. Sorry, I'm on a roll. We use
that's okay, good.
all yeah, we use all non-toxic materials. So our bottle has no lead in it.
Mhm.
Every other competitor, they go the cheap way. I'll say cheap. It is more durable. The great thing about lead is it doesn't break. The bad thing is it could kill you.
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
but it's not in a place that's going to be exposed to breast milk. But still, I don't want lead anywhere near anything that any of my team, myself, or my customers are giving to their babies.
Mhm.
So our stuff is all silicone, food grade stainless 304 stainless steel,
Mhm.
platinum silicone, BPA free plastics, very, very little plastic, practically none, and then a bismuth seal rather than a lead seal. And
Mhm.
PFAS free is the new all the new products need to be PFAS free, and we are there. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's nice. That's really rewarding. And then last thing, I gotta say it because I'm so excited. So we're coming out with our glass bottle in a couple weeks. I'm not sure when. I feel like by the time this conversation is out there in the world, everyone will have access to our glass bottle. But
Yes,
this is the thing. So the glass bottles, if you're okay with me talking about them, because I'm so excited.
absolutely.
Okay.
No.
So glass bottle, any baby bottle, right, is obviously a baby bottle. It's, like, so institutional, it's so industrial, it's, like, not terrible, but it's, like, you can hold it up to anyone,
Mhm.
any person on the street and be like, "What's this?" They'd be like, "Baby bottle," because
Yeah.
it's got the measurements and
Mhm.
it's, like, proportioned that way. Like, why can't like and so then when you're considering having more than one kid or, you only want one kid or you're between kids, whatever, you have a miscarriage. Although to your point, I was just gonna say, you're talking about Scandinavian countries with their leave. Did you see I'm pretty sure it was Germany is now giving leave for miscarriages? It's
No, I
like,
didn't see that.
yeah, how enlightened is that? I mean,
Wow.
nobody talks about how many women have miscarriages and what's that's like, but that's a
Mhm.
whole other thing. So you're between kids and you're like, do we put you've got this whole cupboard full of baby bottles that's just
Mhm.
like
Yes.
plastic, glass, whatever. You're like, what are we doing? So you're like, do we put them in the basement, in the attic? Do we give them away? Do we know anyone well enough that they want our breast milk bottles? Or do we recycle them? Or do we just wait and this
Mhm.
cupboard is useless to us for however long? Like, why couldn't they be beautiful and super versatile and useful? So
Mhm.
our glass bottle is an apothecary style bottle.
Mhm.
So on it's all beautiful borosilicate raised glass. On one side, lavender measures ounces,
Mhm.
and on the other side, rosemary measures milliliters, and it's square, so it doesn't roll off a table, Sherry. Mind
Ah.
blown, right?
I
But
love
yeah, I mean, it only took us a couple 100 years to figure that out. So square bottle, but it looks like that cool old apothecary style, that you would put like, you
Yes.
know, potions in. And it has a silicone sleeve, really pretty plum color and a pretty like kind of like stone gray color. Then a flat cap, again, all silicone, 100% silicone, no plastic or lead
Mhm.
or anything to be found in this. But then why not use it as a flower vase? Or why not use it as a soap and lotion pump? Or
Mhm.
a culinary bottle in your kitchen for olive oil and vinegar?
Mhm.
So we sell
Okay.
all the companion tops to change all of your baby bottles
Oh
into
my gosh.
beautiful things. So yeah, so when you're between kids or when you're done having kids, you just distribute them all throughout the house. It's like in the
Mhm.
bathroom, on the nightstand,
Mhm.
and a
Mhm.
sippy lid. So and a straw top so that kids can keep using them when they're done with a baby nipple.
Oh, I love this. Oh, good. This is all gonna break at the same time, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, your team is going to be so set. It's going to be awesome.
I love it. I love it. Well, Lisa, so if you're gonna leave us like just with one more thing about like, your company, where you're going, things that you can talk about, just tell us like just one more thing that you want everybody to know about who and what you are.
Okay. Hmm, that's a big one.
It's a loaded question.
Way to end on a real solid, stumper. I I think what I want everyone out there who either wants to be an entrepreneur or wants to be successful, and I'm using air quotes, successful as a mom, I think what I really want them to know is that it's totally doable, that I am not special in any way. I have an amazing family, but was raised by a single mom. I have a little brother that I should have been nicer to. I grew up on a farm with practically nothing. Admittedly, being I mean, we immigrated from Canada. It was really challenging to, like, obtain our citizenship. That's a separate story, but, like, admittedly, I there's no denying
Mhm.
the deck was stacked in my favor and that I'm again, we'll just say it, a white woman, and I had access to a decent education, and I was lucky to have a really supportive mom and, enough food. But there wasn't a lot more than that in my life, and, um I just I just want everyone out there who's listening to know that somehow I managed to do it. That if you are really determined and you are willing to sacrifice, because there's no denying it's not easy, but if it's worth it to you, whether it's trying to reach your breastfeeding goals or it's trying to launch a product, um, digging in and yeah, I was gonna say being kind to yourself. I was not always kind to myself either, and I'm not every day, but I think I just want them to know that it's all possible, that it's all
Mhm.
possible, that you don't have to have some special knowledge or some special connection or some special power or some special resource in yourself, that even, struggling through postpartum depression, certainly asking for help and relying on your
Mhm.
community. I never reached out to people like I did until I started this company, and I realized how much my
Mhm.
friends wanted to contribute to my success, and I'd never really experienced that before. I was very much a lone wolf, so I think knowing that if you really want it, you absolutely can make it happen,
Mhm.
and if you don't, it's okay. Like, you'll make something else incredible happen, but, getting support around that too turned out to be, key for me, especially when I started taking, big stuff on like Ceres Chill.
Wow, I love it. I just want to encourage everyone out listening to Lisa's story today and about, her journey. I think, we have to know, like just like she said, it's totally doable. And as we look at problems that are in the world for women and for their success with their family systems and their work life and all of that, as we challenge ourselves to come up with solutions for things, like be encouraged that other people have walked before you, right? And done things that they never thought they could do, right? And now we have the chance to do so much more collaborative work, I think, that
Yeah.
we shouldn't, and I love the fact that you brought that up, like, your community, like of people who love you and care about you, are like, hey, like let us
Yeah.
be a support system to you, right? And I think that's such a powerful thing for women as we sort of step outside of maybe our comfort zone sometimes to launch things, right? Or do things that maybe, put us way out there on the edge where we're like risking so much,
Yeah.
But I think when we believe in things and we've been called to do them, you can't sit back anymore and just, wait. You have to just be like, no, this solution came into my head and I don't know if it's perfect. I don't know if it's going to be exactly the right thing or the best thing, but we just have to have the support and the community, right, to also help us, like, say, hey, well, let's try it. And
Yeah.
so many failures happen before we hit the mark. But I want you to know, like, I'm so happy to know about Sarah's Chill, and I think it's so exciting what you're doing and trying to change the way we look at breastfeeding and all the mechanisms that go along with it. It's a beautiful thing, and to have a sustainable product that, like, we're not throwing away in the landfills, and that it offers so many more doors of opportunities for women to stay in the workplace. So thank you again for being with me today, and thank you for sharing who you are and what you are. I love it, and we'll just wait to see those great new bottles that are coming. And as she said, it's totally doable, everybody. So get your thinking caps on and get thinking about some of the solutions to some of the problems that are everyday problems that you and I see in our world together. So thanks, Lisa.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This was the best.